my name is Andrew Perry, and welcome to episode 10 of the Be Revolutionary podcast. I always think this is like a radio show, so I try to get like my radio voice on, but it's just a fucking podcast.
That wasn't bad.
It's just a podcast. And see, I know I'm trying not to swear, and sometimes it's really hard when you get hyped up, especially with these boys here. We got Eric Cleary and Bryan Droppert.
That's it.
Drop it like it's hot.
You got it.
I stole that from him, and like I'm gonna, and then I'm gonna steal his follow-up joke. That wasn't funny for like 5 years.
Yeah,
anyways, so Bryan and Eric, you guys are partners, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys have Orangelist, one word, which is a property management company, and then
Yeah.
you have the investment team based out of Revel Realty St. Catharines office, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you told me before we got started, you guys manage over 700 units.
Yeah. Between 650 and 700 units. Yeah.
Oh
And what's
my
interesting
God.
about that is that 90% of them are homes. So it's not just like a apartment building with 700 units in it. Like
Yeah.
it's spread all over the place. Burlington, Hamilton, Grimsby, Beamsville, all over to Fort Erie, Welland, St. Catharines, Niagara-on-the-Lake, everywhere.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, that's insane. That's insane. How you guys got a big team behind you? Or?
We have about 14 full-time employees. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's decent enough. That's big
Broken
enough.
up into departments. So
Right.
You got leasing agents. You got a maintenance department. You got accounting. You got marketing. So I know some of the other property management companies kind of have multiple people doing multiple things.
Yeah.
We thought it was important from the begining to kind of separate it.
You may want to bring that up just a little bit for you.
There we go.
There you go. So, do you have like kind of divisions, or just everything is kind of hubbed out of St. Catharines? Like, do you have people stationed in Burlington or anything?
Well, like
that, or-
maintenance people, yeah.
Yeah,
Like for certain
yeah.
regions, like we manage a building in Dunnville, for example, right?
Yeah,
So I mean, you
Dunnville.
need to have strategically located contractors, plumbers, electricians in those regions. But as far as the main office is concerned, you don't have to have somebody sitting in Hamilton to answer a phone call from Hamilton. So
Right,
the good
right.
news is we can have our setup here in
Yeah.
St. Catharines and facilitate 99% of what's going on. It's just sort of that hands-on stuff where, yeah, we need to have
Yeah.
strategic relationships with people locally.
Yeah, well, because I mean, you hear what's the horror story? Well, I don't want to be a landlord and pick my cell phone up at 2 a.m. to
Christmas
unclog
Day,
a
yeah.
toilet.
Oh, yeah.
Those things happen.
The toilets clogging constantly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We had pipe bursts on Christmas Day, and we have an emergency line. So
Yep.
there's like 5 of us in the office that get a page.
Like get a page.
And we're all paging each other. You take it. No, you take it.
You take it.
I'm on it. You do the next
I'm
one.
still opening presents.
It's not that. It's actually organized, but
Yeah, no, of course, of
so
course.
yeah, and then that's obviously super important. A, the tenant has someone they can always contact.
Yep.
And B, we can address it fast. So
Yeah.
a small issue or a bad issue stays somewhat contained.
Well, good, man. That's good. Because, I mean, I'm sure, like, I was reading, do you guys familiar with, like, Bigger Pockets? Bigger Pockets? It's, oh, my God, what is his name?
Like on pants, like cargo pants, big pockets.
No, it's like an investment group, like for landlords and stuff. It's I picked it up. It's like how to invest in real estate 101 or something like that. And then at the end of the book, they say, check us out on Bigger Pockets on Instagram. And like they're kind of going over like, okay, well, you should, if you plan on owning, more than one door, you should definitely consider getting somebody in the property management space to help you out. And they're kind of going over the services that, a typical property manager would provide and the general like percentage, like 8%, 7% or whatever, right? So I'm assuming to have a good organized structure is very important when you're trying to do your research into property management, right?
To go off of that, because we get questions all the time. Do I need a property manager right away, or is this something that I should acquire 5, 6, 7
Yeah.
properties? However you want your business to look, whether it's 1 or 2 properties or 50, is kind of how we think you should set it up from the beginning. And I think most entrepreneurs
agree.
or investors can make that argument that that's sound advice. Again, there's tons of value in having a good property manager, whether it's 1 or 10 properties. But again, do you want to be involved? Are you investing in real estate because
That's
you're
what I was
bored?
gonna say. Yeah.
Or is this supposed to be passive income?
Right.
There's
Or
the
did
odd-
you want a new job?
Well, that's the thing,
Yeah.
right? Like people buy investment properties because they want a investment
Yeah.
Right? You go to the bank, you sign up for an investment, right? They don't say, okay, but in exchange for this investment, you have to commit to this and this and all these time-consuming things. The idea is I have money, I put it here, and I'm going to generate this off of that money. And a lot of times for people, they think that's what real estate's going to be like, and it turns out to be like a second job or a hobby that they hate, not like a fun hobby like flying airplanes. Like it's a crappy hobby that drives them crazy and costs them a lot of money. So Eric's right. Like, you want to structure where you intend to go early on so you don't have to have a painful transition later. But I think a big thing is there's the odd exception. Like if you're an incredibly, independent individual and you have a very flexible schedule, like if you own your own company and you have support and whatever and you're local, I mean, I could see how you can manage it yourself, but 99% of our clients live in the GTA. And if you've got properties in the Niagara region and you've got a full-time job, you got kids, you got all this stuff going on, there's absolutely no way you're going to be able to effectively look after stuff on an hour-and-a-half drive.
That's right.
From north of Toronto to St. Catharines or Welland or whatever when something goes wrong. You're not going to be able to, and you're not going to want to. So if you're going to buy a rental property for these people that don't live close by and don't have that time, just price that into your budgeting. Like you've got
price
your
it up right
insurance, your mortgage, and my property management, and then you can make your decision.
Yeah. And like price it out when you're buying the house.
That's right.
Right?
The numbers work with all of these expenses and just go into it with that in mind.
Yeah.
And if you have a good experience because you got a good local team, the chances are you're going to buy more properties.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Before we go into like the full kind of package that you guys offer, because I remember when I was looking during like the beginning of the COVID, you and I reached out to each other and like I went through your whole thing. Like it's pretty impressive. Like I'll be honest with you, a lot of people this is probably just me, but when I think property management, I think of like, just like sticker that some guy's throwing on the back of his truck, like Johnny Handyman or something like that. But I was super impressed from what you guys sent me. Like it was like you got the full package, man. And that's amazing. Before we go into that though, the investment team. So was property management first, or was like getting people into investment deals and getting yourselves into which came first?
Well, it's hang on a second. It's kind of a little bit of a interesting tale because I've been selling real estate for like 10 years and I had sort of a knack for rental properties because I owned a bunch and managed them for my family.
Yeah.
I met Eric when I was buying my cell phone at TELUS at the time, back in 2015, and he was very impressive. He sold me on a warranty, and I've never bought a warranty on anything before, so that was good. But I said, hey, man, I'm thinking about some property management ideas. I think this might work. And we went out for coffee the next day, and we talked about it. Next thing you know, we were cold calling people on Kijiji to see if they needed services. And 5 years later now, not even 4.5 years later, we're where we are today, which is wonderful with this great business and all that sort of stuff. But I was kind of already doing real estate with investment clients, but there was no structure, there was no machine built yet. And then the property management came, that was organized structure. And then Eric, once he got his feet wet, like the timeline needed to make sense. Because he was right out of college. He never bought a house himself before. I was clueless as to what goes on with that. But after he's been working in the management business for 2.5, 3 years, doing hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of lease deals and turnovers and you name it.
It was hundreds.
Hundreds. Probably, possibly thousands. I mean, it's a lot
From
of units.
bedrooms up to waterfront executive properties.
Crazy, right? So then it became an organic transition into, okay, some of our clients want to purchase rentals. So, I'm busy running the business. Eric, get your license. And then you can start crushing that. And sure enough, it was a little bit of both, I guess.
It was important to get like you mentioned, the structure being the business Orangelist in place, because that's really what helps us. When I give you that ROI that you saw, put those numbers on a page, said, hey, here's the timelines. I'm going to rent it this fast. Here's what it's going to look like. Yes, I can do that myself, but that really, I'm able to make those promises and deliver that experience in a way because of the company we've built and the 15 people we have behind us. Right? So it goes through, Maxine, who's our accountant. She gets the information, signs the management agreement, inputs all the information into our CRM software, payment software, and then it goes on to, I assign it to a leasing representative. That leasing representative makes contact, helps with me. We price the house, and then our marketing coordinator goes, takes photos, gets the listing ready. So it goes through a sequence of events that would be very tough for us to do any sort of volume or a scale of that.
If we were just a real estate team.
Right. Makes total sense.
So it's nice to be in control of, and we work with a lot of realtors, so we'll get into that. Like it's not like you have to buy a house with Eric and Bryan, but in the cases, in most cases, not most, but in a lot of cases, someone calls us, we sell them on this experience, start looking for houses, buildings, whatever it may be. We sell them a product that we know we can rent for good money, that we know is going to attract the right kind of tenants, and then it goes through our business. So if they needs to do some updates or whatnot, we have contractors and that we trust and rely on.
Right, which is huge.
And then the rent numbers that I put on that page come to fruition.
Yeah.
Right, because I'm accountable. Right, so I sell you that house. That's my job's not done.
No.
Right now, it's got everything that I told you is going to happen has to happen. So when I do those ROIs, we give you a rent projection, right? So let's say I think upstairs 17 to 1900, downstairs 12 to 13. I run those numbers. We run those numbers off the low end. I know I can get that.
Yeah.
So it's not like the stars need to align and the unicorn needs to go skipping by to make this
then,
investment awesome.
Yeah, and then when you come out higher, there you go. You look like a hero.
I'd
No one
rather
ever
under
complains
promise
about
and
that.
over deliver than the other way around.
No, I totally agree. And it's not like I'm the investor realtor in Niagara or anything. That's you guys. But I do work with a lot of investors as well, and that's the same kind of thing that I do. Obviously, and if any of my clients are watching this, is hiring people like you, is almost like a no-brainer.
Well, if
especially
your clients have
if
a
you're
good experience, they're definitely going to want to buy more.
Right.
And
if they're not even living here, right? You guys just, how many, sure, you work with a lot of local people, but you got a lot of people outside of the Niagara market too, I'm assuming? Or?
Oh, yeah. I can't tell you how many times I've had people call us and say, I bought this rental property. We had all big hopes and dreams, and it was a great rental property. There's nothing wrong with it, but they just rented to awful people. And and sometimes the people weren't even that bad, but just the way they handle things, the way they take a molehill and turn it into a mountain, as opposed to taking a mountain and turning it into a molehill. Or keeping a molehill. Like they're making things worse because they just don't know how to deal with things. Some people, just their personality, they may be really good at their job, whatever it is. They have a lot of net worth and money to invest, but when it comes to dealing with tenants and people, they're just not very good at it. And so they're creating a lot of problems for themselves. So there's a bunch of things that can happen. Yeah. And I want to point out quickly, because one of the first questions we ask, though, if we're talking to somebody is, are you already working with a realtor that you have a good relationship with? Yeah. And if they say yes, and it's someone who is from Revel or from some brokerages we have great relationships with, like we have a lot of RE/MAX agents we have good relationships with, and Rockstar Realty in Toronto. Yep. And if those people are within our network, we're going to never, ever step on their toes. We tell them clearly, like we call the realtor, say, thanks for the referral, man. That's awesome. And by the way, we can help you. So next time you find a house and you're about to put an offer on it, have your client or send us a copy of the MLS listing, and Orangelist, our leasing team, and our group of people in our team will look at it and make sure that we can establish a higher level of confidence in the mind of your buyer, making it easier for you to convince them to purchase this investment. Because now it's not just you saying it can rent for this much and it's worth it. You also have this group of local reputable professionals also saying, this is good. Kind of like when that home inspector says, this is a great house. Yes, yeah. All of a sudden, boom, the buyer feels a lot better.
That's really cool, man. That's really cool. So, obviously, the idea behind that is to build trust and confidence within your investment team and realtor. But is that like something that maybe might cost a realtor, or is that something that they just want to team up with you on? Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you said, to go off that, we work with on a regular basis, probably 10 realtors, like consistently, weekly, bi-weekly,
that do a lot of volume.
Maybe 100 realtors in total that have sent a deal here. There's not a ton of realtors focus on investment. It's more so they got a relationship with someone who also wants to maybe now invest. Yes. And that's the realtor, and they know that. So,
but some of them are doing big volume, and those ones that are doing big investment volume,
we're their go-to guys,
have been able to utilize us. Like I said, if we get the management contract later or not, we're still happy to jump in
Yeah.
and help you close the sale.
Right.
Because it really does help getting that second unbiased opinion.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea, man. Definitely gonna have to use that myself.
Yeah. So like you sell
With
a
you
house, I'll
guys.
give you like a little. You sell a house, it's got a 45-day closing.
Yep.
Deal's firm, it's vacant. You know, you can put in a couple visits in there. We like to get ahead of it. Like I've rented houses. It's really easy, obviously, when I'm the realtor because I have a little bit more control.
Of
But
course.
I've gone in. I worked with some of the agents I do a lot of business with, and fully rented their duplex while they haven't even closed yet.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
So it closes on October 7th.
That's a pretty good feeling.
They got a tenant
Yeah,
moving
oh
in
my
October
God, yeah.
15th and another one moving in November 1st. So not only are they, if you eliminated a little bit of that
Anxiety.
fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, we bought it.
Yeah.
That's only step one. There's a whole other.
Yeah, that's a
So now they
big
close,
fear.
and boom, we've now mitigated their risk. We've turned down that period of time where they have to pay the mortgage and cover costs. The tenants are going to start paying right away.
Sometimes it's too late, but for every real estate agent, if there's any listening to this, the big piece of advice I would say is whether you're going to do it for them or they're going to do it themselves, it doesn't matter. Put it in the agreement of purchase and sale that the buyer, can have access or with a representative so many times prior to closing, maybe 5 or 6 times prior to completion of the transaction for the purpose of showing it to new tenants. And then the seller's on board, everybody's on board, and it means that we have that awesome opportunity now to market the property because a lot of times there's a 30, 60-day closing, and we can start showing it. Maybe even it's owner-occupied, and the seller has to sign off on it so they understand that there's going to be people walking through their house between now and closing, and they have to be okay with that because we put it in part of the deal when we wrote the offer originally.
And last thing before you ask another question,
Yeah.
the important part there is the way we do a lot of screening
Yeah.
on the back end. So just the way he said that, we're not just flooding.
Of course
Hey,
not.
I want
Of
to
course.
see your apartment. No, like
You guys don't have time for that.
Yeah. The people that with myself, obviously, I've got some agents that also do this, but regardless, when we get in our cars and drive there, we're pretty confident this is the tenant we want.
Right.
This is just to make sure,
We do a lot of pre-screening over the phone.
they like the
Right.
place.
I would
and
imagine.
we like them, and they like,
We're
Yeah.
blunt. How's your credit? How's this?
Yeah.
How's that? And if
Yeah.
they hesitate at all, if they got that voice, we're just not going to go. It depends on some certain key aspects. right?
I hear you because I mean honestly, like I don't want to say this really out loud, but for some clients, I will take a lease listing. Maybe I pass it off to one of my team members, but we don't like doing that. We just don't.
I've often thought that for realtors, for a lot of them, it's almost as if the attitude or the sense is that you're doing your client a favor. It's not really something you want to do. You're helping them out.
Right.
But it's not something that you're.
And would I ever
focused
do
on.
that with the clients themselves when they're buying and selling in that process? No, I wouldn't. I would never just help somebody because, oh man, I don't really want to do this, but I'll do it.
Yeah.
But so why would I take a lease listing? And you're right. But the first thing is that, when I've made that decision is that, I want to pre-screen everybody. I want to get their driver's license, proof of income, credit score, letter of employment, all before I meet them. Is that kind of the same type of screening process you guys do? Or?
We don't go that. It's more of like a questionnaire, right?
Yep.
So, how's your credit? Do you have pets? Obviously, there's a ton of rules, and we're aware of those rules. But just general questions of, how long have you been at your place of employment? Where do you live now? Why
Do you own
leaving?
any anacondas? That's a big one.
Yeah.
I want to know.
Because if you get with the volume we do between 300 and 400 leases a year as a team. So if you get into trying to get too much information, keep in mind the market's hot, and anyone that's good with a really good job and a good credit score, they know they're good.
Yeah.
They know that landlords want them. So if you have to give them all these milestones and they don't even know if they want that house yet,
yeah,
you
very
might
good.
lose
Turn
that
them off.
person.
Yeah, very good point.
Right, so we want to get them in the door. We want them to meet us, meet our team, like the property, and then we do.
We
all
also
these.
do
There you
really,
go.
really
See?
phenomenal marketing for our rentals. So we're dealing with stupid amounts of volume in terms of calls, texts, and emails. So if honestly, I swear, if it was like, hey, my name's Bryan Droppert, the leasing guy, and I had a hat that said leasing guy on it, I would never, like, I'd quit. Like, it'd be hell because the
Yeah.
sheer volume of crap you got to shovel through every day.
Yeah.
It's like trying to
Yeah.
shovel your driveway in the middle of a blizzard,
Yeah.
right? Like, it's just, you're never caught up.
Yep.
And so we have this massive, like I said earlier, infrastructure
Yep.
and this team and a process and a system where these leads come through. They
Right.
don't just fly in and then we try to. There's a system, like a call center almost, how we manage it to make sure that we can continue to deliver effectively for you and for your clients without burning out. Because
Right.
you're going to burn out if you think you're going to handle it.
Man,
It's a lot of volume.
absolutely.
The calls,
Absolutely.
emails, texts, and then the people. It's just, it can be a nightmare.
Yeah, no. I know from experience, and I can just imagine what you guys go through on a daily basis. So
A lot of people have asked us, why do you do
Why do you
property
do this?
management?
Why?
It sounds like a
it.
terrible job.
Which leads me to my next question, but I probably know the answer. Do you guys just take lease listings, or do you just save those for your active clients?
So yeah, we do straight leasing.
Yep.
We call it.
Not nearly as frequently.
Not nearly as
Right,
frequently as.
right.
But yeah, we do offer that.
We like to. The thing is too, like, it's so much. It's one thing to get a good tenant in there, but the relationship and how you handle things. Like, we won't give you a warranty on a tenant that we rent to. We'll
Right.
put a lease together. It's fair. It's very good. You're gonna like it. You got to approve. Obviously, you're signing the lease, so you got to like it. But we can't warranty it because we don't know how you're going to treat these people. We don't know
Right.
whether you're going to be one of those weird landlords who's peeking in through the blinds and in the middle
How
of
are
the
you giving
afternoon.
notice every time you show up?
You know?
Are you
Yeah,
taking a
yeah.
small fire and keeping it small?
Are you
Right.
really creepy? Are you weirding out your tenants? And then
Yeah.
now they want to move out because you're a weirdo? Like,
yeah.
we're not going to warranty that. But if we're managing things, we can control
Right.
how things go throughout their experience.
I love it. We're climbing up onto 1:30, so we're just going to take a quick break. And boom. Okay, and we're back. I hope you enjoyed that quick commercial break. I don't even know if we have commercials. I don't know. Maybe we'll get an Orangelist commercial.
We'll sponsor this. I
Yeah,
guess.
we'll sponsor
there
it.
you go.
Yeah, you have your people, contact our people. We'll get you a commercial.
Well, my
on there.
people's over here. There's
Oh,
Cam.
okay.
Okay, so before we left off, we were talking about how not to be a creep as a landlord, and I think that's totally amazing advice.
It's an incredibly important piece of
Right?
information.
I don't really know any areas in life where being a creep is actually good advice.
Good advice?
Actually, in this this situation, I think you should be a creep. That's going to help.
Yeah.
You, but, yeah. So
So what are, I mean, just off the top of your head, guys, if like there's a landlord listening, I know a good friend of mine in Barry, Dustin Lee, he's been on my other podcast before. Like he does certain things like provide like Netflix subscription, pop by like on Christmas and Merry Christmas card. And I think you, Bryan, before we logged off there was talking about, just building a good relationship with the tenant, right? Anything off the communication
is probably the biggest, and we've structured our business to accommodate that. But as a landlord, make sure you're getting back to your tenants.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, yes, a lot of serious stuff can happen. It's real estate.
Yep.
Furnace, hot water tank, electrical, whatever it may be, stuff happens. They just want to know that you received their message or you got their call and you're going to fix it, right? Because if they're calling you and they can't get a hold of you, they're dealing with the issue and now they're dealing with, oh my gosh, when are they going to come fix this? How long do I got to deal with this? They don't care about me in the It turns into something much bigger than it actually is.
Yeah.
So that quick communication, if you got to go visit the property, give notice. Hey, I just want to let you know. And if you're going there, if it's Monday and you're going Friday, don't wait. Just tell them Monday.
Yeah.
Give them the courtesy. Give them as much notice as you can.
Yep.
Hey, I'm going to be there next week. And I know people that start, we're like, well, I gave them the 24 hours. I'm like, yeah, but it's at 8 a.m.
Yeah.
They have lives. Like, these people are paying a dollar amount to have a home. Yeah. So you got to really try to accommodate that every chance you get.
When you rent to somebody, for a lot of reasons, when they move into your house, it's kind of like you've married that person, because it's really hard to break up with them.
Yep.
And if you have to break up with them, it's very expensive, like a divorce process, and it takes forever. It's emotional. It's painful.
Yeah.
So part of that marriage relationship, you're stuck with this person, is communication. And imagine if you just didn't get back to your wife, how mad she'd be at you.
Yeah.
In the same way, you got to respond quickly and promptly. The number one complaint Eric and I have ever received in our time doing this, whether it's with landlords or tenants, over the years that we've worked really hard to fine tune and make not happen, is poor communication time. And that's whether it's email, text messages, as long as you're getting back to them promptly. Obviously, you got to do something about it. You can't just be like, yeah, that's great, and then, leave it at that.
I got back to you.
Yeah, I got back.
My toilet's overflowing. Awesome, man.
Awesome, man. Good to hear from you. How's it going?
I'm going to bring a Big Mac at Christmas and some Netflix. No, you got to deal with it. But that effective communication, Eric's absolutely right, is so huge, because I think most places that I do business with, whether it's a pool company, the marina, oh my gosh, if you have a boat, trying to get it fixed is a nightmare. There's nobody around that can fix it quickly.
Had no boat.
2 years. We're waiting for a lower unit on a prop. But anyway, it's a nightmare. So because just the communication is terrible. And if you can just be that one business, that one organization that communicates promptly and quickly, people will just be like, wow, that's great. And you're making these emotional deposits in your relationship bank account all the time through that, so that if you do screw up once in a while, because we're all humans, we make mistakes, you can afford the odd withdrawal, right? And your tenant will be more gracious with you. So I
love that.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
So just, give notice, obviously address issues in an effective manner, right? Their tenants are your customers, they're your clients, and that's a big thing that since Bryan and I started this business, and that he taught me, right, is at the end of the day, the investment is only as good as your tenant to an extent. You can renovate it, you can buy the best property in the most amazing location. If the tenant isn't happy and not paying you rent, it's no longer. I mean, it's still an investment because it's real property and it exists. Yeah. But what actually brings it all to fruition is no longer exists. Right. No one buys an investment property to not collect rent. You'll never find an investor that says, "Well, I don't care if I only get rent for 6 months." You know what I mean. So it's you got to constantly be thinking that way.
Well, if the government was buying rental properties,
they might
probably
say something along those lines. Hey, I got a plan. That's some speech today. But anyways, while we're on the topic of tenants, so I mean, obviously, buying a property that's tenanted can be complicated on a good day. And now, obviously, depending on when you're listening to this or watching this, we're still in the middle of a pandemic, essentially. So, I mean, how have you guys been finding your dealings with the tenants during these times?
It was really challenging back in, late February, March, when this really started. We had to quickly innovate and come up with, a lot of new strategies to continue to conduct business while maintaining everyone's health and safety and, keeping people comfortable. Again, they're tenants, they're paying rent to live in a space. Obviously we can't be going in and out like we once were. So what we did was we gave lots of notice. The properties that we already had tenants that we needed to re-rent because they give notice and we're leaving, we did full video tours. So similar to how we list houses to sell. We would arrange a time, they would leave, we'd have the tenant turn on all the lights, open up all the doors, so no one had to physically touch anything. So it was all set up. We just had to hover in there with their masks and gloves. And
after we confirmed that they were content with what they saw in the virtual tour, they had to walk through that first.
So we'd get that. We'd make sure it was nice. And we told the tenants, right, the nicer you make your apartment or your house, the faster it's going to rent, which means the less, things you have to deal with.
Exactly.
We weren't. It was virtual for, honestly, probably 2 months. We were renting houses off of the video. In a couple cases, after it was cleared and good with the tenant and the potential new tenant, we'd arrange, maybe they would leave, we'd go in to do the final little walkthrough. But yeah, it wasn't. Obviously, we had a lot of anxiety. We thought it was going to be much worse. But again, goes back to if you have a good relationship with your tenant, like we do with most of our tenants, whether you're a landlord or a property management company, everything's easier, right? So it wasn't like
if we're selling a property that we already manage.
Yeah.
There's the same challenges, the same landlord and tenant laws, the same, all of that. The only difference, though, is that we can lean on that relationship. And even if somebody has certain rights and certain things that they're owed, a lot of times they don't care. They're not. They're just normal people, and we respect each other, and they're willing to be flexible. Obviously, though, if we're selling a house where the people are already tenanted and we have no relationship with them,
right,
and the buyer wants vacant possession now, that's really tough. I mean, the seller is going to have to basically pull something out of his pants, I don't know, to pull a deal together, offer them cash out of his jeans, be like, here's some money. Can you move out? Like, I don't know, you got to negotiate some deal with your tenants to get rid of them if the buyer requires vacant possession.
Right.
But a lot of them, from what I've found, is they're okay with taking the tenants. They want to have a game plan after they take possession if the rent's low to work on
that was one
getting
of my
some
next
turnover
questions,
and getting things moved on. And if the tenant is paying their rent on time, though, and they pay consistently and faithfully, it's nearly impossible to get them out forever.
It's got to be a negotiated. Yeah, that was kind of going to lead into our, we're going to talk about listing.
But if the tenant misses rent all the time and they're late all the time, there's persistent late payment of rent notices we can issue and hearings we can have with the landlord and tenant board, and then just flat out lack of payment of rent. Anything that's rent payment related is a good thing in a landlord's perspective if you want to get rid of the individual. Right? And then you can turn over that unit and make it nice and rent it for way more money.
Right.
But if you've got people that are really smart and they pay on time every single month, they may be the most annoying people on planet Earth, but you're not going to be able to get rid of them. It's very difficult.
Right. Yeah. Because I know I was looking at a couple, like, I don't know. Obviously, you guys are looking at the market now, right? That's your job. Yeah. And I'm still in the market for like a duplex or something. And did a little tour. I brought one of my mortgage brokers out with me. And we were just having a look. And man, there's not a whole lot that's available right now that is a decent price that's bringing in good rent.
Yeah, the return on investment's tough right now in terms of...
A few that I've seen, some of the people have been there 11 years, 15 years.
Yeah.
I'm like, how much you paying? Oh, $800. What?
Yeah. And a lot of people listing they're listing these properties and not accounting for that, right?
I know, they're like 7% cap. In whose world?
Yeah, you got to look at the asset.
90% down. That's whose world.
Yeah, like you obviously got to look at the asset and price a house. But if you got a fourplex and you've got lifelong tenants in there and the rents are way below market value, you can't price that fourplex the same as if it was just freshly rented with new tenants and high rents.
Because the emotional aspect's not there. If you're selling a single-family residential, the husband and wife are going to picture their kids skipping around in the yard,
I'll go a little higher
leaves.
for that.
Yeah, the school's nice. But with a rental, it's all just the numbers.
Yeah.
And the numbers ain't there. So, the building down the street that's pumping out twice your rent, of course. So, if you want that kind of money, then you work out and negotiate individual deals with all of your tenants. You get them all out.
Yep.
And then you renovate the units, and then you re-rent them for more money, and then we can ask that much money.
Yeah. Yeah, that was the big thing, because a lot of the places I walked into needed a lot of work.
So best thing, before we get into our good relationships with your tenants. Because at the end of the day, that if you got to go down the legal battle, it is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Being the tough guy very rarely plays well.
Yeah. You got to sign sworn affidavit saying you're not going to re-rent a house for 2 years if you're claiming that you're going to move into it.
Yeah.
So you got to be careful. Like it's not like, my son's going to live there.
Yeah.
You have to leave. You know, it's intense. So now if I'll give you an example. I just sold a property last week. Had a tenant only 6 months into a year lease.
Yep.
Right? We covered the moving expenses. I upgraded them to another one of our rentals in an even nicer area.
So there's another advantage.
I'm paying them back for the upgrades they did in the backyard, which helped us get a higher purchase price anyway. Yeah. And that's it. So you have to offer them enough things that they can go, okay, I'm willing to move.
Yeah, you got to
it's on their terms. I went in there and said, guys, I'm happy to tell you what your rights are, right? Because we're professionals.
You can say no to everything I'm about to offer you.
You're
Obviously.
protected by your year lease, but the owners would like to sell for whatever reason they want to sell.
Yeah.
You know, we're happy to try to accommodate you. And I'm open. Like I walk in, I'm like, guys, I know you're probably not excited to see me. You know what I mean? But you should be happy
I'm never
that it's me
excited to
selling
see
this
you.
house.
Yes,
and
instead-
not some other
yeah.
realtor that maybe doesn't know how to sell investment properties
Right.
with tenants because it's special.
It
I'm
is
going to go into
special.
that after about the first meeting and how we do that effectively.
Yeah.
But so that's it. You can, if they agree to it, anything can happen if there's an agreement.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, don't go in there and say, I'm selling, you got to leave, because you can cause yourself any landlords or other real estate agents. That's a
we have the right to. We could ask them
that's
to
a road
marry
you
us
don't
if
wanna
we
go
want.
down,
They have
yeah.
the right to say no to anything.
Right.
So even though it's not what their lease dictates or what
Yes.
the landlord and tenant board says, if they like what you're saying
And they agree.
and they agree to it, then by all means.
Right.
You know, you have to give 24 hours notice, but if I go knock on the door and they say, come on in for coffee, well, no, I didn't get 24 hours.
Yeah, and if you're not on a
Obviously,
good-
if they give you permission, you can get in.
Yeah, it's a
right?
little
And
different.
if you're not on good terms with your tenants, make sure that 24-hour notice is written
Written,
and put in a
of course.
mailbox.
My God.
in the
yeah.
mailbox.
You know,
because
if you're cool
it's-
with your tenant, you can text and call, great. But if you got somebody that's, make sure you cover
trying
your
to
butt.
make things difficult for
Written
you.
notice in the mailbox.
You
take
can't
a photo
stick
of
it to the
time.
door. You can't drop it. Like there's a specific. You have to put it in the mailbox, or
Right.
it's not valid. So where you put the notice even matters.
Right.
So you got to be careful about all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. We got like about 10 minutes left.
Yep.
We wanted to get into.
So yeah, I'll talk about the quick versions, obviously, of working with buyers and then how we list a property with tenants.
Yes,
So
that's
listing a property with tenants, before I even put a coming soon sign, or I go talk to the tenant. Obviously, I talk with the seller and
Yes.
have
Right.
that conversation.
Yeah.
Else I wouldn't be going to talk to the tenant.
Right.
But I talk with the tenant and I say things like I just mentioned, like, guys, I know this isn't exciting. It's not,
Yeah.
right? You probably like it here. You're comfortable. You enjoy it. It is the risk you take when you rent. That at any time a seller, the landlord can sell the property, right? So that's just something you have to accept as a tenant in most cases. So I have that meeting, and again, I leverage the fact that we already have a relationship. Maybe we don't, but the fact that I know what tenants in most cases appreciate and like, and I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible.
If you're selling a rental property that's tenanted though, and it's a single family home,
Yep.
that's definitely going to be tougher because the buyer's definitely going to want vacant possession. And
In most cases, for sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Most cases,
and
yeah.
so now it's totally different though if you're selling a multifamily building where most of the buyers are going to be investors. The buyers, the tenants just want to be kept in the loop, given that courtesy, shown that respect, to be kept aware of, kept in the loop about what's going on. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? They just don't want to wake up one morning and see a sign stuck in the lawn. And then next day, all of a sudden, there's showing
Yeah.
requests from who knows what brokerage. Yeah, I'm here to show your house. Like, who are you? Why?
Why?
So if
Yeah.
you just say, listen, you guys don't have to worry. Chances are the buyer's going to be obviously an investor. So your life's not going to change at all. It's
Right.
just the name you put on the check or who you deposit your
Right.
money to is just going to be a different bank account number. Other than that, your life's not going to change. So now what works for you guys? Are you guys like, you got pets? Like, what do we got to make sure we can make sure this doesn't affect your life in a negative way
like
as
we
much
have
as possible?
We have a duplex right now, North End St. Catharines, and the tenants in the basement aren't home very often, and they have a dog. And for whatever reason, they just really don't want to put that dog in a cage. So
Yep.
I go to every listing, and I show up early, turn the lights on, I grab the dog, and I go outside. So we just do things to accommodate.
Yeah.
And again,
Yeah.
you don't have to be, specialized in the kind of investment real estate that we do to do that.
Right.
But
Right.
these are just things we've been down that road enough times to know.
The tenant
tenant's
can ruin your listing if they
I've-
if they want to
I've
make
been
the
there.
place a mess, if they want to make it smell, if they
I've
want to
been
sit
there.
there and say all kinds of really bad things about you or your property whenever there's
Yeah.
a showing.
property sucks.
Because prospective buyers and even some realtors are like, I can't believe some of the questions that some of my buyers ask the tenants right off the bat, and they'll spill the beans.
Yeah. So a piece of advice for whether you hire a realtor that maybe doesn't specialize in this or something along those lines.
Yep.
make sure you also try to help the tenant find somewhere else to live. Aside from offering them some money, maybe direct them to a property management company, or go on Kijiji yourself and say, hey, I just found 3 properties that are similar to this one. Want me to make the call? The more you offer, and you just try to make it painless.
Yeah.
And the more amenities you can offer your tenant, the more likely. Because obviously, if you're putting that for sale sign, you want to sell your property.
Agree.
Right?
Absolutely.
So it's not like, well, I don't care if it sells, and I don't care. Right? That's not.
I don't care if I spend all this money marketing it.
Yeah, of course not. So it's easy for us because of Orangelist, and like I also found the buyer who was represented by another agent a short-term 1-month lease because they sold their house.
Yeah.
And I couldn't push these tenants out sooner. So we not only found our current tenants a new upgraded home, we put the buyer in a short-term 1 month.
Yeah, that's huge
right?
too.
So there's a lot of things that we're able to do because of our business, but it's things that ordinary people can also do as well. Maybe they don't, have a bunch of other homes that they can just shuffle tenants into, but you can certainly make those calls or align yourself with a company like ours to help get you.
And from a realtor's perspective too, I mean, those tenants could turn into buyers one day too, right? So never shoot yourself in the foot by being an asshole.
That's it. No, it's a really good point.
Right?
Yeah. They could be on your kid's soccer team.
If you don't want to
next
just
summer.
be a good guy, then at least think about your pocketbook at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Don't actually do that, but.
So I guess to kind
Trying to be a good
of
guy.
wrap this up, and
Yeah.
it's tough to get all this information out in a short
40, 50 minutes.
But so working with buyers, ROIs, cap rates, we rely on more heavily in bigger stuff, maybe 5 units plus kind of thing. What I like about the ROI is it's pretty accurate in the way that we do it. So
we break it down for the buyer in a very layman format. It's just here's your bills, here's your utilities, here's your management, here's your rent, here's what your interest is, here's your principal each month, here's rather than trying to look like some Poindexter who knows these fancy things. And a lot of buyers aren't familiar with what the heck does cap rate even mean.
What is that?
Yeah.
But don't I look impressive because I just said cap rate,
2.5 to
that's right.
So exactly,
square root.
It's here's the list of expenses. Again, like I mentioned earlier, here's the low end rent. Here's what we for sure know we can get. You take that low end rent, you subtract all your expenses, your insurance, your property tax, your mortgage, your gross mortgage payment, the hydro if it's all inclusive.
Do you do the whole mortgage payment or just the interest portion on that mortgage payment?
Let me break it down. So take all those expenses. You're left with cash flow.
Yeah.
In some, not in all investments, but let's just say we're looking at a 2 or 3 unit.
Yeah.
So you'll have a little bit of cash flow. We take that number, stretch it out over a year. We mark that amount of annual cash flow against your initial investment. Your initial investment would be your down payment, your lawyer's fees, your closing costs. If there was renos, we also factor that in. Because it's not the $900,000 house you're buying, it's the $300,000 you're putting in. That's your investment.
Right.
So we use that. So we take the cash flow, we mark it up against your initial investment, and that'll give you a percentage, a return, just based on cash flow.
Yep.
Right? Then out of the gross mortgage payment, we'll separate the interest. We'll just focus on the principal.
Yep.
Okay. We'll find out over the year, out of your rent, what's covering your actual principal payment. Okay. Then we'll take that number and mark it up against your initial investment, and that'll give us a percentage.
Because your principal is a return on your investment too every month.
Right.
The interest is an expense that's gone that we all don't want to pay, but it
can't,
exists.
Yeah, you can't do anything about
Yeah.
that.
So those are 2 things. Obviously, there's a lot of people out there, including us, that want to factor in appreciation. And I agree, in this kind of market, you should. But I've always, when representing buyers, focused on those 2 things because that's concrete.
Yeah.
I know we can get the low end rent. Okay, I know the expenses are pretty accurate. Obviously, there's maintenance and stuff that you can't account for, but again, I can't mitigate all your risk.
Right.
If I could, I'd be a gazillionaire. But, I can mitigate it to the best of our ability with the resources we have. So, those 2 things is so with confidence I can sell a property. We can sell a property and go, you're probably gonna, you're gonna make 12%, 15% return on investment. You know what I mean? And here's why. It's at the back of our mind. It's like, it's going to appreciate. We know that, especially in Niagara right now.
Yeah.
We could have a 2-hour, 5-hour, 10-hour podcast about why Niagara is such a great spot to invest right now. So some clients like, they want it. It's just to make them feel better. And obviously that's going to make the overall return look better.
Yeah.
We are speculating, but we can speculate with concrete evidence,
Right.
and intelligence. So yeah, those are the two ways. That'll give us a percentage matched up against what you initially invested, and that's how we represent, from the financial side of things, anyways. Whether an investment's good or not,
Right.
for someone to buy.
Yeah, and obviously, like for most people, truthfully speaking, the biggest profit they end up walking away with is the appreciation side of
Yeah.
things, for sure.
Right.
So you can't ignore it. But if the thing works, even
Yeah.
without the biggest profitability
It's just the cherry,
aspect,
baby.
which is the appreciation.
Yep.
And it still works even without that consideration, then you can have pretty high levels of confidence
Yeah,
that it's
yeah.
going to be a
Yeah.
slam dunk.
Because I had a client, I won't say his name obviously, but we had a disagreement, and he was on the other side of it as the listing agent, so
Right.
it was beneficial for us to supplement that document to say, hey, this is 40% return on your money.
Yeah.
That's factoring in, it was still low end, 5% appreciation.
Yep.
So you take that number and you also match it up against your initial investment. Now things look real good. But again, the other two things are kind of in our control. It's pretty hard to imagine the rental market just collapsing and vacancy going from almost 0 in Niagara up to 10%.
10,
So
yeah.
it's pretty solid stuff that we can say, hey, spend $100,000. Here's what it's going to look like.
Yeah.
So it's a good point you mentioned. Yeah, most investors, a lot of investors only focus on cash flow. It's like, well, appreciation's probably going to be the
Right.
biggest,
Probably. As long as I've been selling real estate for the last 10 years,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's been for sure your biggest. Give me the amount of money.
Absolutely.
We sold a fourplex to one guy 2 years ago.
440 2 years ago. Okay, cleaned up a couple units, did what we needed to do, what I told him I was going to do, to what we were going to do 2 years ago.
Yep.
A bit more money.
And
in
we
rent.
just sold it for $630,
Wow.
right? And
And he did nothing because we literally did everything.
managed it,
From-
renovations, all of it.
So
Yeah.
he just had some money. This is what an investment is supposed to look like. He had some money, whether it was equity in his home or money in a bank account. He gave it over as a down payment on this property on Carlton. 2 years goes by, he sells it, boom, there's his money back because he didn't physically have to do anything. That's
Yeah.
what an investment should look like. If you're
Right.
physically working all the time, yeah, you're
You've
making
invested
money,
man hours,
but you're
sweat.
actually working for
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
yeah, if you work
Where's your
anywhere,
paycheck?
it's not much of an
Weekly.
investment. It's literally, it's like you can get money working anywhere,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes more money than your rental's paying you if you just went and got a job, part-time job somewhere. So,
Right.
that's why we love the model that we're able to provide for our clients and the clients of realtors who we have relationships with, who lean on us because we can really make sure that it actually, in its truest sense, is an investment.
Yeah.
So,
And looks and the experience is what we put on that page that I sent you.
Yeah.
And that's why we do things the way we do. But
I just noticed while we were on camera here, I'm like, oh my gosh,
We're on-
I hope I didn't do anything weird with my
Well,
face.
the only thing you were
He
doing
did a
was
bunch
like
of
playing
things.
with this. I don't know what you were doing over there, but
I think I was picking my nose a couple times,
No.
actually. I'm
But
worried.
anyways, guys, Bryan, Eric, it's been amazing having you on. You're right. We could do hours and hours on this, and maybe we will on a different
Yeah.
topic.
yeah, thanks for having us. Thanks for
Yeah,
having
no
us.
problem. But okay, Bryan, Eric from the investment team at Revel Realty in St. Catharines and Orangelist, one word. Okay, guys, thank you so much for coming
Yeah,
on.
thanks a lot, man.
Yeah, take care.